I came from Italy, I was only a year and a half. And my grandfather was here before my father. And then my father came, and we followed after him. He was about 17 years old when he came. And then my grandfather went back. My father stayed, went back and married. And I was born in Italy and brought here when I was a year and a half to the United States. When he had come the first time, my grandfather was working in Ogden, Utah. They'd come from the Pennsylvania steel mills to work in the camp that was just opening up in Ely. And so he brought the family, which would have been my sister, my oldest sister, and me. I started in East Ely grade school and got there through the 6th grade. After my 6th grade year, the school burned down totally. And they moved all the students from the East Ely grade school to Ely grade school, where we went our 7th grade year, and it was not a good situation. So then they brought in barracks to the fairgrounds for actually military-looking barracks, and they put the 8th grade and the other grades in the barracks. And I graduated from the fairgrounds my 8th grade year. So looking back, that was an experience. We had no facilities, just 2 outdoor toilets, one for the girls and one for the boys. No running water. There was a massive water tank out in the middle between, just off from the barracks. And we took turns keeping the water flowing with little rods and rags dipped in coal oil. Had to keep the water running so everybody could get a drink. So we were on a roster. So I had a great experience looking back at my grade school years. Graduated and then went on to White Pine High School, where I completed my 4 years at White Pine. Graduated there. As a railroad, I started out on the track gang, which was laying rail and changing ties and just the hard labor stuff. Later on, as I moved through, I became a brakeman. Now, this wasn't full time. This was during summers that I would work, and that 1.5 year that I didn't go to school. As a brakeman, that was an experience because I worked at night. We brought the ore off the mountain and down into the East Ely yards, then went back and got a second load, brought that down, then took the first load to McGill to the mill, came back, picked up the second load, took it there. So in the meantime, besides working on the railroad, I was a manager of the Eastern Nevada theaters. So we had a lot of moviegoers in those days. Had the theater in Ruth, Nevada, which no longer exists. Not just a theater, Ruth, they moved that entire town. And then the Central Theater, the Ely Theater, and the Motiview Theater. And I brought my father into the theater business, and he worked with me and then by himself for many years. So that was about the working part. Earlier in my life, I worked at service station and also grocery stores. And I worked for the Bybee brothers, who had the Georgetown Ranch, a great family, and worked at the Georgetown Ranch for a number of summers. After graduating from high school, I waded through probably what you'd consider a quarter of college time. And I did not go to the first quarter of school. I waited till the winter quarter and went to Utah State University, where I thought in my mind I wanted to go into big game management. In fact, that was my dream because of the mountains I grew up in and all of the hunting and fishing that White Pine offered. So upon completion of my 3 years at Utah State University, I came in and said to the lady at the draft board, I want to go in the military. I did that so I'd get the GI Bill, because over the years working on the railroad and doing odds and ends of jobs, gas stations, grocery stores, and great memory places, I decided I needed to go to the Army. So I went into the military and got my training first at Fort Ord, and after Fort Ord I went to Fort Bliss, Texas, where I became a student, actually cadre, which was an instructor in infantry and heavy artillery, anti-aircraft guns. And I did real well, and I liked the teaching part of the weaponry that I was assigned to. So after I completed 2 years in the military, I had to make a decision, because I considered staying in and doing the military as a career. But then I gave it a second thought, and I said, well, I've got 3 years of college in, I'll go back. So I went back and went into education. So I graduated from Utah State with a bachelor's degree with majors in Spanish, math, and government, and then was hired back to my high school in Ely, White Pine High School, as a Spanish teacher. In fact, I replaced a teacher in Spanish who taught me in Spanish. So that's where I started my career. I was a teacher for 7 years. Then I went into administration, and I was vice principal for 14 years, then a principal for 10 years, and a superintendent for 2 years. So I went through the process of teaching and administration and finally superintendent when I got out. Then I was asked by the county commissioners to become a consultant for White Pine County in the nuclear waste program. So I served there on the monitoring of Yucca Mountain here in the Las Vegas area for 4 more years. And then after the 4 years, that ended my involvement with schooling and that process.